Hello, everybody, and welcome to You'll Have to Dumb This Down for Me. I'm Mikey,
And my name's Kevin.
and today we're going to talk about DB Cooper.
Yes, the very famous Skyjack, and I'm sure most of you have heard of it if you've clicked into it. Mikey, what do you know about this?
Um, well, I would say I would know that he jumped out of a plane with a rake of money,
That's
and
right, yeah.
I can't remember. Did the money go missing, or did he just go missing, or was he found? I can't really remember.
Yeah, so lots of stuff went missing and very little was found, but yeah. So we'll get into it here. First of all, we're going to nip it in the bud, read the name. He never actually used the name DB Cooper. DB Cooper was a local man who was interviewed at the very start in a kind of a ruling out operation by local police. A journalist in a hurry printed it and that name stuck. He used the name Dan Cooper. But yeah, that's where it is.
Never knew that.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's the whole point of the podcast. Um, so,
You will have to dumb this down.
yeah, no, I know that. So, on November 24th, here we go. We'll tell the story of it first, okay? On November 24th, which was Thanksgiving Eve in 1972, a man bought a ticket, approached Northwest Orient Airlines in Portland International Airport, in Portland, and he bought a one-way ticket to Seattle Tacoma Airport, which is a relatively short flight by American standards. He paid in cash and wrote his name as Dan Cooper on the ticket. Now that's mad by our standards today, going in, buying a flight in cash.
Put your own name on it.
Well, as it turns out, it wasn't his own name.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, he basically just, he was on the flight an hour and a half after paying cash, which would not happen today. So he's wearing a black suit, a black tie, white shirt, loafers, and has a trench coat, a small black attaché case, and as far as I can tell, a small paper bag. Now, this isn't mentioned in everything, so I'm not 100% sure if he had that or not. It's mentioned in the FBI files, so probably did have it. Anyway.
Would I be right in saying, is he the reason we have modern security in airports today?
Well, there's a guy called Bin Laden who contributed to that as well, but yeah, there is. He definitely helped with some of it. In America back then, a plane was like a bus. America's so big. I mean, going from Portland to Seattle isn't that long a journey. So anyway, he gets put on the flight 305 to Seattle, along with 36 other passengers and the flight crew. He sits in the middle of the back row on the right-hand side. He orders a bourbon and 7-Up, and he lights a cigarette, because the 70s were great.
You don't even smoke.
I know, yeah, but it's just, I like to be able to. So shortly after takeoff, Cooper slips one of the flight attendants, Florence Schaffner, slips her a note. Now, initially she thinks this is kind of a lonely businessman who's given her his number. So she just puts it in her pocket and goes to carry on, but Cooper's having none of this. He gets her attention and says, "Ma'am, you better read that note. I have a bomb." Now, the note more or less says the same thing. He has a bomb and he would like her to sit with him. She does so. He opens the briefcase and she sees what she later describes as 8 sticks of dynamite connected to some sort of a battery. He then demands $200,000 in a knapsack, a fuel truck ready to refuel in Seattle, and 4 back parachutes, 2 back parachutes and 2 main ones. Or sorry, 2 front and 2 main ones. He supposedly used the line, "No funny stuff or I'll do the job." That's from her take. Now, we don't actually know what he said because he collected all these notes afterwards. So everything he's supposed to have said is secondhand. Nobody knows what he actually said. Well, somebody knows, but they can't remember. It's very hard to remember verbatim what somebody said.
Well, funny enough, that happened to me on a flight. Well, it didn't happen to me per se, but I was on a flight where
someone blew it up.
Yeah, that's why I'm not here today. No, a note was given in. A note was found in the toilet of a flight that I was on from New York to Dublin, and it said "bomb on board." Isn't that mad?
That is mad. Yeah, maybe someday somebody will do a podcast about that.
Oh God, sorry.
Anyway, continue. So Schaffner heads to the cockpit and she informs the captain and the pilots about the demands. And another stewardess, Tina Mucklow, she sits down beside Cooper, and for the rest of this flight, she sort of acts as a go-between between him and the cockpit. So the pilot gets onto the ground about the scenario, and then he begins to hold over Seattle. So basically circling over and back over Seattle, as various authorizations and stuff are sorted below. The ransom is collected from the Seattle First National Bank, and it's $10,000 bills. It's £9 of money.
But it's mad they even went along and got the ransom money for him.
They held ransom money specifically for this.
Actually, yeah, I think I heard something before that ransoms were just always paid.
Yeah, that's the Seattle First, the Northwest Orient. Once their president found out about this, he just said everyone is to fully cooperate with Cooper, do whatever he says, pay him whatever he needs, because they're insured anyway. So
That's mental.
It is. It's a far cry from today now. It's the hoops you have to jump through now to get a ransom.
Sorry, Kev says this as if he's ever held something ransom. Like, the weight of the world is not on your shoulders, Kev.
But it feels like it sometimes. But so 4 parachutes are sourced from a nearby skydiving school. It's all gathered, and Cooper gives them permission to land. So it's what should be about a 45-minute flight is taking about 2 hours. They land and park in a remote part of Seattle Airport. All the shutters are put down to dissuade snipers. The front stairs are open, and he sends Tina Mucklow, poor old Tina gets an awful doing, out for the money and the parachutes. And then he permits all the passengers and most of the crew to leave. The only people that stay on board are him, Mucklow, and the 3 flight crew. It's actually funny that most of the people on board at this point was the first they knew that the plane had been hijacked. The pilot just said they were circling due to technical issues. So anyway.
Wouldn't that make you think on any flight you've been on that's been delayed, or they've been like, oh, we're having trouble flying or having trouble landing?
Yeah, they're negotiating with a bomber.
Oh, never know.
You never know. Could happen to anyone.
Because even that flight, let's just circle back to that flight.
Oh yeah, please, let's talk about your flight, yeah.
It was interesting. But that flight, we were only told technically at the very, very end. We only just knew there was something up because the flight attendants were being quite nervous, I'll say. But it was only when we landed we actually knew that something happened. But how many flights have we been on where there's been a threat and just nobody knew?
Oh yeah, probably. Well, especially you. I'd imagine there's a lot of people trying to blow you up. But anyway. So then, part 2 of Cooper's plan kicks in. He then says to the pilots that he wants to go to Mexico City. He wants the pilot to fly low, as slow as he can without stalling, with the flaps at 15 degrees, the landing gear down, and the aft staircase. So there's a staircase at the back of the Boeing 727. It comes out with the back. I'm doing hand gestures here, though this is an audio podcast. Comes out with the back. He wants that taken off. Now, 2 of these demands can't be met. The plane can't take off with the stairs down, and with that configuration, they're going to burn a lot more fuel, so they can't make it all the way to Mexico. So they agree, first of all, that they'll do a refuel stop in Reno, Nevada, and that Cooper agrees that if Mucklow stays on board and shows him how to lower the staircase mid-flight, he's okay with that. So they agree with that. There's a bit of a faff with the refueling. It takes, again, about 2 hours. So it's well after dark when they take off. I have it written here at 7:36 p.m. So I assume, none of the pilots are keeping time. I assume that's accurate.
Right, it would have to be. But that's a long time to have someone hostage, and for, I feel, the FBI or any authorities to not make a move.
Yeah, I mean, he only had the front staircase down. He had all the windows. He did specify only one person. I think it was the local chief of that airline that went, and he went in normal clothes so that Cooper wouldn't think it was a police officer or anything like that. But yeah, I suppose, there was no security. It's not like now where you think it's very unlikely that someone would have a bomb. There was essentially no security. You didn't have to even show ID to get in a plane. So anyway, they take off, and after 5 minutes or so, Cooper tells Mucklow to head to the cockpit and that he's not to be disturbed from this point forward. So the last time she or anyone else saw him, he's standing in the middle of the aisle as if he's preparing to jump. She enters the cockpit. She locks the door. About 20 minutes later, a warning light comes on in the cockpit telling them that the stairs have been lowered. Now, there's a very brief intercom conversation with Cooper where they offer him assistance. He declines. That's it. That's the last anyone hears from him. 3 hours later, the flight lands in Reno. The captain leaves the cockpit. He has a quick look around and he sees that Cooper, The 2 parachutes, the bomb, all gone. Plane a storm by police, by FBI, etc. And this is where the investigation starts. So when they storm the plane, one of the things I suppose that makes this case so lasting, there's almost no evidence. He's taken everything with him. All the notes that he wrote or that were wrote on his behalf, he's taken with him. So there's no, there's no handwriting, nothing like that. There's nothing.
Were they fingerprints at that point? Would they be looking at fingerprints at that stage with that technology?
Yeah, but they have no. Yeah, but if you don't know who the person is,
sure, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And obviously DNA wasn't a thing.
Well, we'll get to that later on because all they find are 2 of the parachutes, a black clip-on tie, and 8 cigarette butts. Now, these cigarette butts
could have been anyone's.
They could have been anyone's, but they're in his seat. But amazingly, they're lost. They don't have them anymore. The FBI, yeah. Yes, we think we have, the FBI are just cowboys. Anyway, everything else is gone. So they've almost nothing to go on. So they chat to the witnesses, particularly the first air hostess, Florence Schaffner, and Tina Mucklow, because they've interacted with him the most. And they give very, very similar descriptions of him. And that's very significant because Schaffner got off the plane in Seattle. Mm-hmm. Mucklow is in Reno. They're not talking together. It's 2 completely independent descriptions. And they're both very similar. They say he's white, kind of a sort of an olive Mediterranean complexion. He's in his mid-40s. He's about 5'9" or 5'10". Black or very dark brown hair, brown eyes, and a medium build.
Now, when you say like olive, I just think green, olive green.
No, it's more. It's used to describe like people like Greece, Italy.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, sorry.
Not to get racial about it. So,
not to get racial. Go on.
And midway through the flight, he'd actually put on dark kind of wraparound sunglasses, so it's very hard to recognise him even still.
Yeah.
So they make a few composite sketches. Now, if you've ever even heard of D.B. Cooper, you've seen these sketches. It's what pops up when you Google. It's kind of a slim face, kind of with the sunglasses, small lips. So they start looking, but they're immediately at disadvantage. Nobody saw him jump. Now, soon after the pilot made the last intercom call to Cooper, they felt a kind of a little bump or oscillation in the cockpit. And they later did a recreation where they pushed a sled out of a plane that weighed about 200 pounds. And the same thing happened. So they reckon that was when he jumped.
Yeah.
So they know when. The where is a whole other different... Because obviously nobody knows how long he free fell for.
Yeah.
When he pulled the cord.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of wind. The plane was doing 200 miles an hour.
Back then, would they have had latitude or would they have to organise or work out their own latitude and longitude?
No, it's not the 1400s. It's the 1970s. So
I don't know these things.
Yeah.
I don't fly planes. I drive a Volvo.
Yeah, no, they know where they're going. Yeah, so they have like routes and stuff.
But if you're the captain of a hijacked plane, a hijacked plane, would you not maybe think, oh, there was a bump in the air, maybe let's mark the latitude and longitude?
They did mark it, but what I'm saying is they marked the time and they were following a route, so they know roughly where that happened.
Okay.
But
there's a big
if he pulls his parachute straight away, he's going to drift and float, whereas if he doesn't, if he doesn't get it pulled at all, which may indeed have happened, he's going to arrow into the ground.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay.
So they have a kind of an area marked out where he's probably fallen, but it's a massive area. It's 40 kilometers north of Portland, which is kind of southern Washington. Mountainy, rough, wild area, very forested. I don't know if you've ever been to Washington State. Dense forest. It's where the Sasquatch, the Bigfoot stuff comes from. So it's very, very wild. They do have a very, very...
They love a mystery.
They love a mystery. They do. They love a mystery, yeah. They love when fellas go jumping inside. But anyway, they trawl that area. It's a hard search. There's snow. It's rough weather. But they find absolutely nothing. Not a shred of evidence. No sign that he's dead. No sign that he's alive. Nothing.
No impact crater, I'm assuming.
No impact crater. Nothing. No parachute. No money strewn everywhere.
Yeah.
So their searches keep coming up nothing. After about a month, they say, right, we're going to start targeting the money. They'd photographed all the money, they know all the serial numbers, and they publish a list of these serial numbers. They circulate them to banks, to casinos. They start offering a reward. They're on the paper, but not a single note of it is found. Okay? Until February 1980, which is 8 years after the hijack. There's a small boy named Brian Ingram who was raking some sand by the Columbia River. He's on vacation with his parents, and he comes across 3 bundles of cash. Badly decomposed, but they're still wrapped in the elastic bands they came in, and they're still in the order that they were given to DB in. They're buried in the sand. It's about $5,800. So it's the only evidence they've really found that is conclusively linked to the case.
Yeah, so I was just about to ask, like, what are the chances that this just didn't happen?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there is concrete that they're all making it up. So, however, this leads to more kind of questions and answers, because it moves the search area a little bit to there's a river called the Washougal which flows into the Columbia. That is probably where, the most logical explanation is it free fell down there and it floated in, but that doesn't really explain why it was buried.
Yeah.
And why only 3?
Yeah.
Why would 3 free falling and free flowing things come exactly to stop right in one place?
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
No.
No more of the money's ever found. No more of anything is found. There's no other evidence found. This is the only thing. So
if that then fell so close to the river, there's probably then a chance a lot of it fell into the river and just washed out to sea, including him even.
Possibly. But like, why would 3
perfectly,
and why would they be buried? And that whole area has been like
raked, I'd say.
Oh, absolutely, sure. There's amateur sleuths and everything going up there looking for him. Like, it's massive, so it's a mystery within a mystery as to how the money got there.
Yeah.
And it could be someone else found Cooper and buried it. Anything could have happened.
Yeah. Would you be raging after all of that plan if you were DB Cooper and you just lost the money?
Yeah, you survived the jump.
Yeah.
And everything except the money. Yeah.
You would be raging.
Oh, you'd be sickened. Yeah. You'd almost feel sorry for him.
Back onto another plane, do it again.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that. So, where is DB Cooper now? Who is he? That's the question everyone wants to know. And like, the first thing you're looking for, are we looking for a suspect or a body?
Yeah.
Because it's suspected by many, and I think I've been on the FBI's website on this, and I think the primary hypothesis they were working with was that he did not survive the jump. He jumped out of a plane doing nearly 200 miles an hour, 10,000 feet in the air, cloudy, dark night. He could not see the ground underneath him. He'd no way of knowing his position.
You also don't know, I'm assuming, if this man has ever skydived out of a plane before. Like, I don't think I could skydive out of a plane with the right equipment and survive myself. I'd probably panic, especially not in the dark back then. Like,
exactly. And it's very, he can't see the ground. He also didn't make any reference. He didn't insist on a flight plan. So he has no idea where he is. Like, so it's impossible for him to say, for example, have an accomplice on the ground.
Yeah.
To reference, he doesn't know. And then even if he does, he's in a suit and loafers, which is not what they dress you in when you're going skydiving.
That was my next thing. Like, surely he doesn't have any survival gear with him.
No, some talk that maybe he had some in the little black, or in the paper bag I mentioned.
Yeah.
But he can't have had much.
No, in a paper bag.
It's very wet, it's windy. And then, so this is it's awful conditions for the jump. Is he a survivalist? And then, right, so this is one of the biggest bone of contentions in the whole thing is, was DB Cooper a good skydiver?
That's such a...
I know, but stay with me on this, right? Because he got given 4 parachutes, all right? 2 big parachutes and then 2 front reserve parachutes. So one of the parachutes he got, in the rush to get him his parachutes, they actually gave him a dummy one, which was sewn shut. It's just used for students to feel what it's like to pull the cord.
No.
He took that with him.
Oh, God.
Then he's given 2 main parachutes. He's given a steerable civilian chute, which is the most modern one, and a military unsteerable parachute, as in when it goes off,
It's just that circular.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
how you're falling where it goes. He took that one with him. So it looks like he made the worst choice.
Yeah, well, he
for
has a
both.
1 in 4 chance of making it, really, doesn't he?
Yeah.
As opposed to a 100% chance.
Now, however, there's another way of looking at this, right? He never intended to use the backup chute, the sewn shut one, because the one he had left, he'd actually cut the lines of. It's theory that he probably was trying to put the money in the kind of pack of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And it's possible he chose a military one because that's what he was used to. This is 1972. America's in the Vietnam War. There's a lot of lads that are able to paratroop in America. There's a lot of lads trained in paratrooping.
Okay.
So maybe he just went with what he was used to. And then there's he does make a comment somewhere through it about where McCord Air Force Base is. When the plane is circling initially, he says that to Mucklow. He definitely knows something about planes because he knew that Boeing had the back stairs.
Yeah.
Like if you jump out the front stairs of a plane, you're just going straight into the engine. So he knew something about planes. And then what gets me, where I think he was maybe a better skydiver than people let on, is he was so meticulous up to that point.
He has to have made a plan. Yeah.
There's no way a guy, in my opinion, now this is obviously, everything we say is opinion in this. There's no way a guy is that meticulous and then I just jump out into the darkness and hope for the best. Like, that's surely not the end of his plan. He surely knows what he's doing.
Yeah. And I don't really know much about anything, really, which is the whole point of this part.
Yeah, agreed.
You don't have to rub it in. But even the Vietnam War, I would not have known that I don't know the dates of any wars, let alone the Vietnam War. So I would have known that was going on at this time. So, yeah, he could well have been drafted.
Could have been, or he could have just been, a lot of lads are in the area. Yeah. And, think about everything else he did to cover his tracks. He gathers up all the notes, right, that he's used, covers his face with sunglasses, makes it very hard. He asks for 4 parachutes to make sure that none of them get, because the FBI did actually toy with the idea of just giving him a dud parachute and letting him fall to his death. But because he asked for 4, that wasn't a runner. They had to think he was taking a hostage. This to me,
I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
That he'd be taking someone down with him.
Taking a hostage, yeah.
Jesus.
And then, of course, I think the biggest...
Imagine being Mucklow and thinking that.
I know, yeah. She did fair sweating that day.
She just wants to give out peanuts and drinks.
Yeah, I hope she got overtime. I really hope she got overtime.
Overtime?
Yeah. And then the main thing for me about why he survived the fall is we haven't found him. It's one of the most searched areas. This is one of the most famous cases ever. People have trawled the area and not a bit of him has been found.
Which would make you believe he's alive.
Makes me believe he's alive anyway. And it's more interesting if he's alive because then we can look at suspects and stuff rather than just going, he died.
And he's dead. But even back then, it would have been so much easier to, if he did land, realise he lost the money, lost everything, and said, I may just go home. He could have just picked up a lift somewhere,
yeah. It's America. It's the west of America, sparsely populated, and there's no missing person. Where's the missing? If this guy died, there's no missing person that we know of that matches his description.
Yeah, and there's also social media obviously isn't around. The news aren't going to be that quick to pick up this story to have people on the lookout.
It's Thanksgiving. A lot of people are on holidays. A lot of people going home, driving home.
It's the perfect crime.
Perfect crime. Well, it is. He hasn't been found.
Exactly.
Well,
did he get the money though? That's the thing.
Well, here we go. So let's just assume he did survive for the sake of keeping the podcast going another few minutes. And
thanks for listening, guys.
So assuming he did, we're looking at some suspects. Now, look, anyone who's alive in 1972 in this part of America is essentially a suspect because we have so little evidence.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at just 3 suspects. Now, before we do, though, there's one angle that's kind of not mentioned that often, and it doesn't feature any of the suspects I'm going to talk about, but there is some talk that Cooper may have been Canadian because originally when his request was relayed via the pilot to the ground, he used terms like negotiable US currency. Now, a US person would just ask for money. You know, like if you were in Ireland and you were like, you just ask for euro, you wouldn't ask, you know, whereas if you're dealing with a foreign currency, you might say something like that. Um, Now, again, we don't know that he said that because, as I said, the notes have all been taken.
Yeah.
This could be third hand, people embellishing, whatever. But also, Dan Cooper is actually a comic in France. It was a comic of like, not necessarily in France, but it was French.
Yeah.
And Canada, as you know, has a big French-speaking
Yes.
population.
Yeah.
So maybe he's a bilingual Canadian. But again, it could be completely coincidence. He's not one of the suspects I'm going to mention.
Yeah.
So for the sake of brevity, we're going to get on to the three suspects I'm going to talk about. Now, it might not be any of these guys. You know, it's highly likely it's not one of these three. But if you're familiar with the case, you're familiar with all three of these guys.
How much money was it again?
200,000.
And what would that be in today's money?
I should really...
Couple of million, would
A
it be?
couple of million, yeah.
Like, would it be a case, do you reckon, just before we go on to the suspects, maybe that'd be covered, I don't know. But could it be a case that, say he falls with the money, he gets away with the money, happens to just get away with it with this and has like that a couple million on his back? Back then, obviously, a lot of things were cash in hand. Not a lot of things were documented the way everything's documented today. Could he have just bought a gaff?
Yeah.
Cash in hand. Someone just kept the cash and lodged other cash. There was cash was washed or laundered.
I mean, I don't even know if all that. I mean, if he went back to Canada with it, presumably he could have.
Yeah, would they be looking for? Would they be looking for this?
Don't know. So he possibly did. Anyway,
go on.
We've got three suspects, and I've kind of brought all three of these in for different reasons. So the first suspect is a guy called Richard McCoy. Now, he's the first suspect mentioned on the FBI website. He's their preferred suspect. And the main reason he's a suspect is because the next year, he also hijacked a Boeing 727. He used a fake bomb, a fake name. He demanded 4 parachutes. He successfully landed. Now, he served in Vietnam. He was a demolitions expert and a helicopter pilot. Now, he also was an avid skydiver, and it's alleged that Cooper might not have been. Again, it's debatable how good or bad a skydiver Cooper was.
Yeah.
But this guy was
an
avid.
Yeah.
Now, what he did differently as well, he gave specific instructions on the flight path. He actually jumped out over his hometown, Richard McCoy.
Oh my God. What a way to tie a crime to yourself.
But both Schaffner and Mucklow, indeed anyone who interacted with Cooper, said
it's not him.
Yeah, they said it wasn't him. They believe Cooper was in his mid-40s.
Mm-hmm.
McCoy was 29 when this happened.
Okay.
Now, we'll never know because Richard McCoy, he was caught for this, either his first or second hijacking, depending on whether he believed he was a suspect or not. He was caught. He escaped from prison and was killed in a shootout with the FBI.
Jesus.
So if he isn't Cooper, he's taken it to his grave. It's hard to know. I mean, did Cooper just look old? You know, could he have been in his mid-20s?
Could he have aged?
Could they have gotten it wrong? You know, and like the fact that this guy went and did it, he must at least be considered somewhat of a suspect for it.
Yeah, even you just describing this guy before you got to I forgot about the witnesses, to be honest, already. Before you even got onto the witnesses, I was like, well, it's obviously him.
Yeah.
Because the crimes are so similar. But then also, it's a year later. Everyone knows about this crime.
It could be a copycat. Yeah, exactly, yeah. They know this is a way of making money. So he could well be a copycat. So, there's Richard McCoy. Second suspect is a guy called Robert Rackstraw.
Great name.
Yeah, alliteration. This guy, decorated paratrooper, very experienced with bombs, had an extensive criminal record. He had an uncle with the name Cooper who loved skydiving, and he was recently expelled from the army. So there's potentially a motive there, and probably
you've already sold it to me already.
Yeah. But he was only 28 when it happened, and he had light-coloured eyes. Now, Cooper had dark eyes, so.
Well, then, what about his uncle Cooper? Did anyone investigate him?
I think he died before it.
Oh, for God's sake!
Yeah, I think he died before it. So I don't. I mean, if Dan Cooper gave his real name, this really should have been solved a lot sooner. You know?
Oh, it was him, Dan
Yeah.
Cooper.
So then the last suspect. Again, there's the Wikipedia page on this has like I think 17 suspects. You know, I couldn't cover them all. We'd be here all day. The last suspect is a guy called Dwayne Weber. So Dwayne Weber made a deathbed confession to his wife. Called her in and said, "I've got a secret to tell you. I am Dan Cooper." Now, his wife says that she had nothing, she didn't know much about the skyjacking, but then she recalled when she put two and two together, she recalled that Weber used to have nightmares about leaving fingerprints, on the airplane. He had a knee injury. He said he suffered from jumping out of a plane. He was a World War II veteran. He was 47 when it happened, and he does match the physical description. So his eyes are the same color.
Yeah,
He's the same build.
same
Now,
face.
well, we'll get to the face. So his prints were not found anywhere on the plane, nor his DNA. They subjected the tie to like electron microscope stuff, and they found a lot of rare earth materials on it. Maybe suggests that the Cooper worked in a Boeing factory or something.
Right.
Or he could have just had someone else's tie, or it could have been secondhand. You know, no one knows. With regard to the face, what's really telling is photo fits are so vague. You could look at a photo, and if you do look up these three guys, look at them first in connection to the photo, and you will see that photo fit. You could see that or the sketch.
The resemblance.
They all look like the sketch, but look at them together.
They don't look.
They don't look anything like each other. So it just shows how sketches can be.
They can skew you.
They can skew you. But yeah.
But even if something as traumatic as being in a plane that's hijacked, how long are you going to remember someone's face for?
Well, that's it. And how accurate are you going to
How
be?
accurate are you going to be?
Yeah. It might be any of these guys. It probably isn't, law of averages. It's not.
Well, even that last guy who believes he's Dan Cooper, like, isn't there someone at the moment who thinks that they are Lady Gaga? Like,
There's definitely one person, yeah.
There's definitely one. There's definitely two, because there's a woman out there, I think in America somewhere, and she believes she's Lady Gaga. There's going to be people like that who have lost their mind and are just going to make these deathbed confessions.
Yeah.
This man could still be alive, could he?
No, his deathbed confession was just before he died.
No, not him. I mean, DB Cooper. Could he still be alive?
Possible. He was what? If he was in his mid-40s in the 70s, that's 50 years ago, he'd be in his 90s.
That's plausible.
It's plausible. Imagine
it came out today, the day we released this.
Oh my God, we'd make a fortune.
We'd make a fortune. And this will be the first and last episode.
Yeah. Lads are retired. So yeah, who do you think it was? Of those three, if you had to pick between one of those three.
If I had to pick of those three, initially I'd pick the first one, but McCoy, everything just seems a bit too perfect. But the fact that, well, then you never know. I wonder, I was going to say, the fact that Mucklow and the other attendant didn't identify him. But then, I'd be being paid off. He has a couple of million there. Well,
no, I don't think that's one of the lines required. Yeah, so like I kind of was convinced by Weber, but I mean, like it's probably none of them. It's probably some lad. I mean, if he's this slick and successful, he's probably.
Well, I was going to say, if he got away with it once, sure, wouldn't you be bitten by the bug and you do it again?
Possibly.
So could he have been caught under a different name doing it?
Yeah, could he have lost the money and wanted to try it again?
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll never know.
We'll never know until today when he dies in his death, or he has a deathbed confession.
Yeah, here's hoping.
Well, I suppose that wraps up.
That's all I have anyway typed out.
And I've nothing.
As usual.
What do you mean, this as usual?
Mm.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening if you've made it this far. Again, I'm Mikey.
And I'm Kevin.
And this is You'll Have to Dumb That Down For Me.
Thank you.